Welcome back to the Open Mic Broadcast Network, the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. It is officially football season. The SWAC Media Day is behind us, and you know what that means. It's time for us to hook up with our football guru expert, Coach Heist Northern. Coach, how you doing, sir?
Man, everything going good. I tell you what, it's been a wonderful summer for the Northern family. Adam is playing baseball, and he's hitting pretty good right now. That's been a blessing because he'll go through those lows, which may happen again. My daughter has been to a couple of camps, and she actually made All-American cheerleader. That's going pretty good. Myself, I've been on a few trips with my brother on some business ventures. That's going pretty good. So, and my wife is doing well. She's working with Microsoft. So everything's going well in the Northern household. It's that time of year again where I used to tell my wife pretty much that once media day comes, it's pretty much bye until Thanksgiving almost for a lot of football coaches and their families, because at a lot of schools they spend so much time at the office. What I would try to do as a head coach, I would try, especially for my coaches that had young elementary school age kids, try to make sure that they could see their kids either in the morning. I would, move the staff meeting back to let certain coaches drop their kids off at school, or I would tell those coaches to have their meetings with their players early in the morning so that when practice was over with, they could see their kids at least sometime during a regular school day, whether it be, like, say, before school or after school. It may not be that long, but at the end of the day, we are fathers before we are coaches, in my opinion. So, like I say, but it would be a lot of times where you wouldn't get to see them that much until after the season is over. And I would try to do things, too. So when I was at Prairie View, we had a guy, with a big watermelon patch, Mr. Williams, by the big pond up there. I would have him, I knew him pretty well, so he would bring watermelons to the whole team. And when he would do that, I would make sure my kids came. Invite, hey, coaches, on certain days we're going to have watermelons. If we have somebody that's bringing ice cream by, we may cancel some Saturday meetings and say, hey, man, y'all go home and do something with the wives. But for the most part, it's bye to the wife and kids until the season is over. And everybody understands it's a grind, but you got to find a way to make it through it.
Yes, sir. Sound like you kind of missed those days, Coach.
Hey, man, to be honest with you, about this time of year, sometimes I do until I get a call from a buddy of mine that we have that might have that wake-up call, or that we call it the SWAC moment, where just say you might go out there and the fields might be lying wrong, or they might have not even be lined at all, or you're supposed to have a meeting with somebody else on the other side of campus, and that person doesn't show and don't let you know that they not going to show. So it's when you get the call from your buddy, be like, man, you can't believe that one of my players did this or the trainer did that. How would you handle that situation? When I get those funny phone calls, I don't miss it at all. But I'll go to a few training camps before the season starts, and depending on where I am, the band might be practicing. I'll miss it then. But then, like I say, when you get that craziness, I'll be like, nah, I'm glad I'm taking a minute. And to be honest with you, I've been telling people that 9 times out of 10, Adam is going to his senior year of high school. Once he finishes high school, I will look back into coaching, whether it's locally on the high school level or taking a job out of state. And the crazy thing about it, my daughter wants me to go back to college because she missed the bus rides that Adam got to make and, all that type of stuff. So she wants me to go to college. And we were just talking the other day about, I asked her, when we go to Southern games or Prairie View games, depending on who they playing, and I asked her, does she like being on the field or in the stands? And she say 9 times out of 10, I like being down on the field because she gets to interact with the cheerleaders, take pictures with the players, the mascots from the different schools, those types of things. So she wants me to get back into college rather than, staying locally on the high school level.
Well, it sounds like that you got a predestination, sir, and we'll just see which sideline you end up on.
Yes, sir.
Well, look, I know that you say it's a lot going on around this time of year, and we got quite a few new coaches in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And it might seem like an unfair question I'm about to ask you, but it's something that I'm curious about, and I'm pretty sure some of our listeners are. Of all the new coaches that'll be taking the charge for the first time, and even though Cedric Thomas is not a first-time coach, he is at Alcorn, which coach do you think will have the biggest hurdle in the new coaches realm, and why do you think so?
When you say hurdle, you mean the most problems, or which coach do I think is going to do the best getting over and getting to the finish line?
Well, how about both? But, who's going to have the greatest challenge, and then who's going to have the greatest advantage?
The greatest advantage by far goes to Mickey Joseph at Grambling. Number one, that dude is a good football coach. He's a great recruiter, and he's at a place where football is important. The crazy thing about it, I actually ran into the athletic director from Grambling on my way back to Texas the other day. But Mickey, by far, I think is going to have the most, he's set up for the most success out of all the coaches, just because of who he is, where he is, the talent that they have coming back, even though they lost a few guys to the portal. But at a school like Grambling, it's a household name amongst the people that look like us, and it's easier I say in my opinion, for them to get transfers into school. They, even though Texas Southern has general admissions or general studies, Grambling has the name that will allow them to get into some places that Coach Dishman at Texas Southern won't be able to get into. The biggest hurdle, I think, is going to be Coach Dish is probably going to have, in my opinion, the most problems because of where he is, the history of the program, and he's going to a new place. Coach Thomas has a little bit of advantage because he's going to a place that he has been before, and he was on the staff there last year. So he knows the ins and outs. He knows what he's dealing with, and that's going to be a little bit of an advantage for him. But at the same time, like people used to tell me, it's a big difference when you move one or two chairs over and you sitting at the head of the table instead of the middle of the table.
Absolutely. Do you feel because of those intangibles dealing with Coach Cedric Thomas that is part of why Alcorn is picked number one in the West?
I think a little bit. I think based off of what they have coming back now, in my opinion, I wouldn't have them number one in the West. My opinion, I would probably go with Grambling, Prairie View, Southern in that 3-ring rotation because of, like I said, where they are and who they have coming back. Prairie View's got some stability with Coach McDowell, but he's bringing in a new offensive coordinator, and I expect Prairie View's defense to be better than they were last year as well. So that's a plus for Prairie View. On the Southern side, they have a quarterback that has played some, with running a very similar offense with Coach coming in, Coach Mark Frederick coming in at running a very similar system to what Coach Dooley was already running there as their head coach and offense coordinator. And then I say, like Grambling, they have a guy that's predicted to be the offensive player of the year, and he's going into an offense that's going to be easier terminology-wise and system-wise for him to run. So I think they're going to have, like I say, those are the pluses for those three. With Coach Thomas, like I say, they lost a little bit, but at the same time, man, I just don't know how I feel about Alcorn being up there after, losing their head coach, a guy that was beloved up there, in my opinion, by everybody except it seems like the administration. But, it's going to come down to, I think, those three. But the thing about Alcorn, they can beat any of those schools, but can they consistently beat all three?
Now, when it goes over to the East, I was in line with Alabama State due to the shifting that has taken place over on the East. How do you feel about the East side of things?
I think I'm in that same party of it's Alabama State and Jackson State until somebody beats them, until they lose two games in the conference, because Alabama State still has the same defensive coordinator. They bringing in a new quarterback, a new system on offense, and they lost their top offensive player in Keyshawn Johnson. So that's going to be a lot for them to have to make up for, in my opinion. And then they bringing in a new quarterback that's, in my opinion, a good player, but at the same time, a lot of times in the clutch, in my opinion, he's not the best player when it comes to late game situations.
Okay. So, but you still okay with Alabama State being the cream of the crop from the East during the preseason, though?
But yeah, by the simple reason because their defense is pretty good. They got a few guys coming back, but they, like I say, everybody's lost a couple of people. That's the dangers of having a transfer portal when you have some guys that do well at a young, at an early, let's say, freshman and sophomore year. So, but I still think that their defense, I think, is returning their whole staff, if I'm not mistaken, on the defensive side of the ball, and you have a quote-unquote defensive head coach. But I think that that's going to give them the edge. And then, like I say, Jackson is going to always be in the mix because of where they are, who they are. And I want to say their quarterback that got injured last year is going to be coming back as well. So it's going to be between those two. Fam, you're losing the play caller. You're losing quite a few guys. You're losing your quarterback, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of their quarterback last year. But they still got some, like I say, some stud ducks coming back on offense, but they lost a couple of those big defensive tackles that I was in love with.
Yes, sir. We're talking with Coach Heiss Northern on the Open Mic Broadcast Network. We're talking football because I can smell it all in the atmosphere, Coach, that the pigskin is tossing around. I almost said two-a-days. I guess I'm dating myself. But, football practices are getting cranked up. And with the change of the season, it makes me ask this question. There are dynamic changes throughout college sports all around us, and they seem to be coming up each and every day. HCU just got kind of kicked out the courts. They said, no, it sounds good, but we're not going to pursue this. Do you think now is the time that the Southwestern Athletic Conference consider dissolving divisions and just play a 9-10 game conference schedule and just determine the top two teams to play for the championship?
Well, I think once you get past that 12-team mark, I think that's what most conferences are doing, which is, all the quote-unquote Power Fours, I would like to say. But I think it still leaves some intrigue because I think it makes the interest stay longer if you have divisions as opposed to everybody's playing with every.
Okay, we lost connection. We lost connection with you just for a moment, Coach. If you can repeat that, I'm sorry.
How do you determine the quote-unquote best two teams? If everybody's not playing against everybody, then I think you have to go east, west, north, south, however you want to do it, in order to get to the quote-unquote top two if everybody's not playing everybody. At one time, it was everybody was still playing everybody, but it still was an east-west type of thing, and it went by you had to play at least everybody on your side and then maybe one or two on the opposite side, but your record pretty much was determined by how did you do versus only the east or only the west, and that's how they do it at some of the I want to say it's not the SIAC, CIAA. That's how they did theirs, where they played everybody, but only your north and south opponents counted towards going to the championship. So it's a couple different ways that you can get to it, but I still quote unquote like the east-west as opposed to if everybody's not playing everybody, I would still rather have divisions.
Okay. Now, you know I've been getting beat up by Graham Nation and Jag Nation about my proposal about the Bayou Classic. And I thought about a workaround, Coach. Our conference is unique in more than one way. We are the only FCS that has a true bowl championship game that's identified and recognized in the bowl championship series. What if we asked for an amendment that the Southwestern Athletic Conference officially start conference play week 0, okay, that could possibly shorten up when the season would end? That way you can keep the Bayou Classic in place and still create that playoff scenario for the conference.
The playoffs, so you're talking about like have the top 2 on each side play against each other?
Yes, sir.
And then have the conference championship?
Yes, sir.
I think it's still going to go back to the expenses that are incurred having an extra game that may not be either budgeted for. It's going to be good if somebody can host the extra game, but the team that has to travel, how do they get their expenses paid? I think that's the problem that you're going to run into. And that was actually one of the problems that we had, because I was a representative for the conference, even though I wasn't a head coach, when they started talking about, okay, how do we get either 7 or 9 game mandate? Because at the time, Prairie View was just starting to get good. So it was some team, you want to play against Prairie View when you think you can beat them. But at the time, we were starting to get good, but Prairie View doesn't travel well. So if you're an Eastern Conference school, why do you want to play against a Prairie View, knowing that they have a chance to beat you at home, but they're not going to bring a lot of people with them? It was the same thing with Mississippi Valley. Why do you play at Mississippi Valley if you are Prairie View or Texas Southern, unless you just want to, quote-unquote, get a win, but they're not going to bring any people with them? And it was the same thing that we had. That's sort of how we got to the Nike and the Russell deal with the conference, because certain schools were having problems paying for equipment. So it was like, okay, everybody go with these companies and we can get money, because the Valleys, the Alabama A&Ms, the Prairie Views at the time were having hard times getting equipment deals and shoe deals, where Southern, Grambling, Jackson State would have, and even Texas Southern for that matter, because they were always good in basketball, were having no problems getting shoe deals, but you had some that didn't have any, and that was eating up their budget. So those two things sort of went back to, the budget of how do you prepare for those games if it's not scheduled ahead of time, if you see where I'm getting at. You got to find a way to offset the budget. Just say if Bethune has to go play Jackson, that's a pretty long trip or something like that. So you have to have a way to make it feasible for the school that has to travel that late in the season.
Absolutely. Now, Coach, you said something earlier in reference to Texas Southern, and I want to ask this question. Do you feel it is more challenging to recruit for an urban-based institution or a rural-based institution, and what are the pros and cons of each one?
The pros is every family, if you're at an inner-city school, every family wants to talk about the safety of their kids. From a standpoint of, when I'll put it like this, when I was at Texas Southern for that 1 year, we had to, I'll say, strategize. How do you get kids on campus from the hotel or wherever they stand without them seeing certain parts of, quote-unquote, the Scott Street area? You know what I'm saying? Uh-huh. Where if you're coming down from 45, and the crazy thing about it, you passing by U of H's stadium and all of that, but, it's a certain couple of streets that I used to have to explain to my son why that guy is laying down right there, or why is that guy standing up. We call it the dope fiend lean, just standing up in one place, just leaning. So you have to think about that when you're at an inner city school. Now, when you're at the quote unquote country school, the parents want to know, like, okay, how often do they go to Houston or whatever? When I was at Grambling to Ruston or Monroe, and what do they do for fun? And I would tell this story. When I was at Grambling, I was the youngest coach on the staff, and I lived within walking distance of the school. So I would always get the phone call about somebody getting in trouble or, Coach, we have this incident. So one day, just imagine, Mike, my house was like from 290, and I get a call from one police officer stops by my house and say, hey, Coach, can you come ride with me? The guys are having a pool party down the street, and they got the road blocked off. So I get in the car in the front yard of this house, and there's people out there, and there's women, college-age ladies with bathing suits on, football players with no shirts on. You got the Cowboys, it's everybody out there, and there's a pool party going on with a kiddie pool, Mike. So, you know, I tell that story to say, look, them kids they young, they gonna find a good time somewhere. But the biggest thing in the country school is, like I say, what do they do when they get bored? One of those types of things. But in my opinion, it is easier, and a lot of it goes back to tradition, I would say. So the Southerns, the Jackson States, and FAMs, they can show you a good time when you go to their city if you're a high school kid. But you still, like I say, have to worry about the trouble. If I was a recruiter, I would much rather, in my opinion, recruit to a place like a Prairie View. I wouldn't. The Valley is like way out there different, but you know, like I say, it's a certain type of kid that you don't get to go to those schools. But to me, it's easier. I like recruiting kids to a country area, the Grambling, the Prairie View, than I did a Texas Southern. Or when I was in Morehouse, like I say, that's a different ballgame. But a lot of it goes back to tradition as well. So I know I went all the way around the world, but I think it's easier to me getting kids nowadays to a more rural area than an inner city area.
Okay, you just hit another high point as far as I'm concerned. We know that Valley is the butt of a lot of jokes throughout the conference, and you just referred to a certain type of kid to go to Valley. If you were in the recruiting shoes at Valley or the head coach at Valley, what type of kid, A, would fit that Valley atmosphere and your system that you would go after?
I think you got to find the kids with the chip on their shoulder. They might be an inch shorter than everybody wants, a couple of pounds lighter, a couple of pounds heavier, and you just got to get them to buy in. Like, hey, man, we're going to put this work in. We're going to do the same work. Let's say when I was at Grambling, when I was at Prairie View, and we were successful, we're going to put in the same amount of work and a little bit more to get the same results that we got a few years back. So you're recruiting kids that may have been overlooked. You're recruiting kids with a chip. You're recruiting kids that, like I say, have something to prove. And then you have to dip into, I think you almost have to treat a Valley, which everybody does, but more junior college-ish, I would say, where I'm trying to find guys that's more junior college players than high school players. And the high school players that I get, I'm going to tend to move more on the bigger kids that have to lose weight than the smaller kids that have to gain weight. And sort of go from there.
Okay, now I'm about to put you on the spot now, Coach. I'm about to put you on the spot. I know you're reserving your coaching opportunities for, you know, when your son Adam is done with his high school career. If the opportunity would present itself, what would make it be a yes for Coach Northern? If like I said, the opportunity presented itself, we're not casting the ill will on anyone, the Valley position was open. What would make Northern say yes to Valley?
Just going up there, getting on campus and seeing how committed the university is to winning. Because I put it like this. I want to go somewhere where I know I can win. Do I mind building the program? No, I don't. I'm still young enough where I feel like I could go in and because I like to say I was at Southern. We rebuilt as a for 3 or 4 straight 3 wins. Rebuild and one.
Okay, we having a little challenge with your connection again, Coach.
Now, okay, I say I've been to 3 places and rebuild, which I don't have a problem with helping rebuild, but I would want to go somewhere where I see that the university is committed to a rebuild. Where when I say committed to a rebuild, I mean, are they going to give me a certain amount of scholarships where I feel like I'm not, everybody else got AK-47s and I got a .22 revolver? Or are they going to give me some summer school money? Or what? They might say, hey, Coach, if you go talk to this department, the agriculture department has money that if you put your kids in this program, I can sell them on getting in this program, getting in this major, and having school paid for. So it's different things like that. I would have to find how can I even the playing field. Do they have an in-state program like what they have called TOPS, where if you in a certain percentage of your class, you get an automatic in-state scholarship? Or I think at one time Mississippi Valley had a neighboring states program, so Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, those students from those states, I want to say even Arkansas, could get in-state tuition. So now I could find some guys that may want to play FCS football. They may have been going to pay to play somewhere else. Well, why don't you pay to play here and you get a chance to play on some bigger stages? You get a chance to go play at Jackson State, at Southern, those types, at the Alabama, at Pine Bluff for their homecoming, maybe if you're a Valley. So I got to find some things what are some selling points that I can use to get players. And I'll tell you like this. I was up for a high school job locally, and I met with the head of schools, and the thing was I wanted to find out what do you as a school have available that I can sell, because it was a private school. So now I got to say, what are you guys going to do to help me get some kids in? Because I have to have, if you're not straight Jesuit, I'll say in Houston, or if you're not Parkview Baptist, you hire Southern Lab in Baton Rouge, what can I do to compete against those schools for the same type of players? And that would be my question to the university. How are you going to help me? If you're serious about winning, fine. If you just want to have a football team, fine. But I'm not at the stage where I just want to go somewhere and just coach and make money. I really want to win. That's, I hate to say it, but to me, that would be my top priority, going somewhere where I can win.
I have no problem with
I can win anywhere.
Yes, sir. You made me chuckle, man, when you did the reference of the .22 rifle. I thought about that scene from Harlem Nights. They were all shooting those machines.
Like I said, sometimes you just got to back them up, but everybody understand what a shotgun getting racked sound like. So sometimes all you got to do is rack it, and everybody knows what comes after that.
We're talking with Coach Heiss Northern about Southwestern Athletic Conference football and just football in general, and how we're ready to get this season up and off the ground. Now, Coach, you do a lot of research. You do a lot of action with coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, administrators. Who are a couple of players that you are really excited to see get into action this season, and who do you think are some hidden gems that are coming up from either, I guess, if you can just a couple of players, you don't have to go through a whole laundry list, but just a couple of players that are on your radar?
I think, and this might be the Jaguar in me, but I'm really going to be interested to see how does the quarterback play at Southern pan out, because they have the kid that transferred from Grambling. Last year started the Bayou Classic. I think, and man, that joker has we talking about AK-47s and 22s. The bad part about it, he has a strong arm. The good part about it, he has a strong arm too, right? But he thinks he can throw the ball through people at times. So that's going to be the interesting thing to see. Can Coach Fredericks get him to maybe not hang on to the ball to make the big play and not feel like he has to throw the ball through people. I'll put it like this: the unit that I'm interested, and I'll say it's two of them. I'm very interested to see how does Alcorn's offense look this year, and how does Prairie View's defense look this year? Because I think they, like I said, they wasn't bad last year, but I think they're going to be better. But I think those two units are going to determine how the SWAC West goes, and Gramblin's defense as well. But I think those are going to be the top things that I'm going to try to see. How is it going to play out, and how much those units have with the team's overall success, and how good is Southern's quarterback play, because everybody, like I say, they were booing the young man last year for his backup. Now his backup is in the running to be the starter, and it's like I say, it's a whole different thing when you have to start in September and it's 95 degrees and you done played 3 quarters of football in this 3-point game. How do you react when you have that pressure on you, as opposed to just having to come in and maybe hand the ball off or come in and throw the ball around? And it's sort of no pressure how you do, but now everything rides on your shoulders.
Well, as they say, the talk will soon be laid to the side and the rubber will meet up the road. And they'll, as they say, last team standing shall be determined the champion. Coach, I'm excited for this 2024 season, excited for our dialogue to continue and pick up throughout the course of the season. Before we shut down for this week's segment, give you some closing thoughts and comments, sir.
Well, I think a couple of things I'm looking forward to that are some quote-unquote on the field, off the field things. How is that going to be handled? Because we know with the technology comes problems. How is the coach-to-player communication system going to work in our conference? Or have we even, and I'll make a couple phone calls to find out, have the coaches even got their units? Have they put them in? Have they tested them? You know, all those types of things with the helmet, the coordinator to quarterback communication, coordinator to linebacker or safety communication. How is that going to work in the conference? Because we know at certain schools there are problems with connectivity. The other thing that's going to be interesting to see is how does the tablets on the sideline, does it improve play? Does it become a distraction? And I think as a coach, sometimes you have to try to limit. You have to be very direct in what are we going to do and how are we going to use it. So if I'm a coach, and even some of the high schools in Texas, how did you guys use it? How much time did you use it? How long did it take to download? Is it play to play? Is it series to series? You know, all those types of things that you can look at. But I'm like I say, the biggest thing are those two quote unquote off the field developments that may lead to some pluses or some minuses when it comes to on the field play. And then other than that, it's just going to be who gets off the 1-0 versus who gets off the 0-1. So it's going to be interesting from that dynamic. But, you know, other than that, like I say, I'll get a chance to go to some I can't say two-a-days, but I say training camp, because most people practice. They practice in once a day, and then they'll have a good walkthrough, and they have limitations on, okay, what can you do at the walkthrough? Can you do 11 on 11, or does it have to be just offense on one side of the field, defense on the other? Can you have footballs? Can you have helmets? So it's different rules. And then the other thing that's interesting, too, to me, I'm real big on, we're going to wear tennis shoes, shorts, and we're going to be uniform when we go to walkthroughs. We're not going to look like the Negro League All-Stars out there. So what's the tempo and what's the temperament of the walkthroughs that some people go through? Because like I say, I've been to a Nick Saban walkthrough, and you couldn't tell that it was a walkthrough. You would think that they are full pads, you know, all go, no breaks type situation. So how do we take advantage of that time that we're given with the rules that we're given as HBCU football coaches. And then the next thing is who can get through camp, like I say, who can get their horses to the gate without having a major injury. But other than that, man, I'm looking forward to it. I still got a couple irons in the fire with some things going on. From a media standpoint, but I'm looking forward to, watching Adam play some football, watching a whole lot of SWAC football, and then sort of seeing how different it's going to be with some of these West Coast teams having to go all the way to the East Coast, but they in the same conference.
Yeah, that's going to be and it was ironic that you talked about the technology, and even though we're in the 5G area, soon to be 6G before you know it, all internet is not equal. We talked to Eddie Kelly, a head official of the SWAC, and there was a question raised on why is it hard to hear, and are they not testing the equipment? And he quickly stated that that's based on the home campus and their connectability and equipment. So it's going to be interesting to see how this new technology fits in. Coach, I'm excited. It's 2024. It's time to get it going, and we're looking forward to your insights and what you're bringing to the table, what you're seeing across the conference, and can't wait to get it done. He is Coach Heiss Northern, our football guru analyst. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. There you go, laughing again, y'all. But it is what it is, Coach. You're going to have to take it and live with it. You can reach out with me on Twitter X at The Mike Prince Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. And don't forget to visit our website, 24 hours a day streaming at obnradio.com. And until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.